The sponsorship for this week's episode has been gifted to the mental health charity Trauma Research UK.
Trauma Research UK are an incredible charity who support those who've suffered or continue to suffer with the effects of trauma and anxiety.
For more information and to access their free online support, go to traumaresearchuk.org. I know too well that a challenging childhood doesn't end when your childhood is over, as the effects of childhood trauma can affect you like for the rest of your life. Let's be honest, we're all shaped by our childhood and what we've been through. And, you know, I had a lot of traumas and a lot of challenges in my life.
And I did either. So is there one in particular that you would like to talk about now that will obviously give us some idea of what today's all about?
Well, I think that realistically, what we sometimes overlook and beat ourselves up for, really, is that we have these issues in adulthood, whether it be anxiety or overeating or sleep issues. And we blame ourselves and beat ourselves up as adults and don't really attribute all those symptoms to things that have happened to us. So
that's an important thing, though. They are symptoms. And a lot of people think that actually there's something fundamentally wrong with them, but they are symptoms of things that happened in our past. So go and give me your example.
A couple of quick examples. One of them by the fact that for me, food meant friendship. I was bullied, but if I bought treats, crisps, chocolate for the bullies, then that kind of helped me. So I did have weight problems as a teenager because obviously I was buying food, eating food. I think a big one that really stands out though was that obviously living in a home where there was a lot of argument and a lot of turbulence. You know, I didn't attribute until quite recently that I had sleep issues. You know, I'd be the person that would go, oh, you know what, I never sleep through the night. And I know that you gripped me for that and went, whoa, hang on a second. If you can't sleep, that is a symptom. There's got to be a cause. And it was only then that actually, when I started to work through it, that I went, oh, hang on a second. I have been on high alert since being a kid because I had to be on high alert as a kid because if my mum and dad were arguing, I wanted to go and protect my mum and stand up for my mum. And I'd carried that into adulthood. Fortunately, now I can sleep very well since we've dealt with it.
Of course. And isn't it funny that, because we hear that so often, that children think when parents are arguing or, you know, worst case scenario, one parent gets violent towards another, that children can intervene and make a difference.
I know, when you can't
I feel
really,
guilty because they couldn't.
I've got to tell you though that, and this is something that is also important that we want to talk about today, is how when you're a kid and quite often you're in those situations and you can't control them and home life can be turbulent. But I think one big saviour, as you know, I've spoken often about my Mr. Keating, was my escapism. The times that if you'd have said to me, when you were a kid, what were those standout moments of happiness? What were those standout moments that really brought you joy? And for me, one of the biggest joys in my life, despite the fact that I was such a shy and quiet kid, was belonging to a drama group at school and being in school performances.
You know, because you brought that up, can we just have a pause for thought moment? Because I just want all our listeners to think, who was it who made a massive influence on your life? And, you know, in the real world, it should always be your parents, but often that isn't always the case. It's someone like your Mr. Keating, the drama teacher, but there's always someone. And just as a pause for thought is just think about that person. And if you've not spoken to that person or thought about them in recent times, why don't you pick up the phone or, you know, contact them, drop them a letter or something, because
which is what I did.
Such an impact on your life, and they might not even know.
Absolutely.
Well, in fact,
I did do that. I did that with Mr. Keating. I not only wrote about it in our very first book, I sent him a copy of it and then bumped into him, and it was just an absolutely beautiful moment. And he was overwhelmed and didn't realise what an impact he'd had on my life. And with that in mind, our guest today is actually somebody who probably has changed hundreds, if not thousands, of lives over the last 30 plus years. A lady who has owned a drama school for in excess of 30 years. A lady who's launched the careers of many household names that we all know from TV, and a lady who literally is doing just that, maybe doesn't even realise the impact and life changes she's making to so many children. And with that in mind, we'd like to welcome our guest, Carol. Hello,
Hi,
Carol.
Carol.
Hi. Godby, it's so lovely to have you here. So yes, I'm guessing that you appreciate and know the impact, or maybe you don't. You probably will never know actually how many.
No, yeah, you're quite right. I know that we have 1,000 members at the moment, and I know I've been doing this job for 33 years. Very much like you, found drama when I was really, really young, about 11. I was getting lots of crosses next to my maths work at school, and I was in, what was it? The Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and I was the bad witch. And at the end of it, people applauded, and I thought, oh, I like this. I've got this right, and that was the turning point.
Getting something right.
Yeah, and I recently they invited me back into the school, and it was on a council estate, the school, and it's not far from the centre of Manchester, and we didn't really have much. And I went back in and I said to them, look, I have an office now. I have a studio. I used to have a London office. I've got a Mercedes outside. You can have that. I was an ordinary kid who lived on the estate that came to this school that had nothing. And very much like you, Eva, my parents did fall out and fight a lot, and drama helped me. And I will always listen to children, always. And I don't think it's any mistake that I work with children at all, because I felt I was crying out to be heard. And you are when you're hurting as a child. And I'll always have all the time in the world. So it's more than just a drama group.
I know
what we do.
Yeah,
more than just a drama group.
Yeah, and I think that, again, obviously Liv was one of your students, and it's interesting because I know that even, you're our daughter, everybody would expect that because Liv's our daughter, that she has no issues and has no problems. But for you, Carol's school also impacted you positively, didn't it?
And I think it really opened my eyes to a lot as well, because it's really interesting that I think one of the reasons why we are so good at what we do in therapy is because we meet people from all backgrounds and we understand all the places that people have come from. And I really feel that at a young age, the biggest thing that gave me that was going to Carol's drama school, because there were so many people there from so many different walks of life, and I met so many people that had been through such hardships, that were really struggling at home, but felt that they had a place there to go where they could just be themselves and they could just escape that, which is obviously what you were talking about there. And it was so interesting for me to see all these different people from all these different places and what everyone was going through, but yet everybody came together. And even now, I struggled, I'm not comparing to some of the things that people had been through there, but for me, I struggled at school with bullying. It's something I've mentioned on this podcast before. And even for me going there, what an amazing group of people that were so accepting, because they'd all been through difficult things. And we were all kind of there just to, escape that difficult school life, for example.
Yeah, I think what really stands out for me about the drama school scenario is that there is no judgment. We're all in this together. And that's what's the great thing about community, whether that be, for me, it was the drama group at school, it was the choir at school. And I know for you that, you probably haven't really kept in contact with any or very few of your school friends, because you did feel very isolated, yet unbelievably, you started Carol School when you were a kid and you're still in contact with those people.
Massively, yeah, because I think that it was such a, an amazing time that, everyone could be themselves and share that, and therefore it created such amazing bonds. So absolutely, I really did keep in touch and still do with many people from there, all that were there for the same reason. And I think that's why it's so nice to have somewhere else to go. And something else Carol said that I thought was really important is that, Carol said she struggled with the like sort of academic side of things. And I think we so often, make kids feel that if they're not academic, then they're not worth anything. That's it. It's all about academia. It's all about, what you can do in school. And the truth is that isn't everything. And children build their self-esteem in those school years. They start to learn about themselves. And if they feel that it's all about academia and they can't do that, then they can really feel that they're not good enough. And to find something like drama or any hobby that they are actually good at and something that they really enjoy and realize their value in another area, I think is so important for realizing how amazing they are.
Let me ask you a question. So you don't really keep in touch with your school friends that much, but you've kept in touch with all the people that you met at drama. Do you think that might have something to do with the fact that you chose to do this extra curricular activity and everyone that was there chose to be there because they like doing that, whereas at school it's sort of like you have to go to school, so maybe because you have to do it you don't want it, but choosing something, do you think that made a difference?
Yeah, probably. And there was also the lack of competition. I think at school there's this very competitive environment, and all credit to Carol because it's such the drama school is such a non-competitive environment where it was like you could explore who you are and just enjoy without having to think about, is she doing better than me, is he doing better than me, and that competition.
That's an interesting thing though. Can I ask you a question in that regard then, Carol? The kids that are at your school, do they all want to be there, or are some of them being forced to go by parents?
The ones that majority want to be there.
Yeah.
You do get the odd handful that is the parents, pushy parents, but generally they don't last long because the child digs their feet in and it's like, I don't really want to be here, and they're kicking up a fuss and they don't want to come into the studio. The majority want to be there, and they don't have to audition.
Yeah.
So everybody's welcome.
That's lovely.
It doesn't really matter. As if you have an interest in drama or you want to give it a try, or you're struggling with self-esteem, your confidence, and you want to build that confidence, then, the door's open to everyone.
Then obviously Liv just said that there was really no competition at your school. Which is great because it's nice for everyone to feel the same. But how would it go if you put a production on? Then you've got a cast for that production. Doesn't that involve a competition? And how do the ones that don't get the part that perhaps they wanted, how do they deal with that?
I explain why they haven't got it. And I explain to them, you can make that small part your own and you can stand out, and it's what you do. And we can't all be Sleeping Beauty. I wanted to be Snow White, but I had a big mouth, so I was always the baddie. I always wanted to be the pretty one, but no, I was always the baddie. And that's it, really. It's all about teamwork, working together. Like I say, I say this a lot, sports, there's a lot of people that play football out there, fantastic young footballers, but they won't all play for United.
That's very true.
But they may play for a lower division and earn a damn good living out of it.
Yeah.
And with actors, you're not always going to get the lead. And unfortunately, it sometimes goes on how you look, your physical appearance. So, if you don't match what the writer, the casting director or the writer, the playwright wants, if you're physically different, you're not going to get the part.
So it doesn't matter how good an actor you are.
No. If you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, you go to uni, you come out and you work. You're in the profession. If you want to be an actor, you can go to RADA, you can go to LIPA, Man Met, any of these other, any of the top drama schools, come out. You might never be a professional actor, and that's the sad thing.
What's
It's
very
like winning the
interesting
lottery.
that you said, Carol, and I think this is really paramount, I think, in young people, children, and obviously whatever you're doing it right, because the young people that come in and out of your school over the years, and like I say, it's over 30 years now, you are impacting them very positively. I have never heard anything other than positive feedback from young people that have been through your school. But the one thing that you said that is so interesting and I think is so vital is that you said if they don't get the part, I explain why. And this is also, I think, communication with our young people is vital as a parent, as a teacher, anybody. And this, I think, is actually a gift that you have. I actually don't think that you treat children like children. You treat them like a human being.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And that, I think, is there's probably a lot of kids that and, talking about pressures of childhood here, there'll probably be a lot of children that come through your doors that aren't listened to anywhere.
No.
But at your school.
That's right. Well, I'm doing it because nobody listened to me. Nobody treated me like a human being. It was, children should be seen and not heard. And if you explain as to why they didn't get the part, isn't that you're not good enough. It isn't that. Of course you are. You're all great. But this particular role isn't going to be for you.
Yeah.
It's like with me, with the best will in the world, I'm not going to play a 25-year-old. You know what I mean? There are some people who do think that they can, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. Let's not mention any names. But anyway, it's interesting because when I asked that question, you went off to going into acting and so on. And this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about taking children and building the confidence. And it doesn't all lead to acting roles. It's just helping them in life, isn't it?
Yes.
But I think that's what Carol was saying really well, actually, about the kind of, you can say that this role, for example, might not be for you, but it doesn't mean that you're not good. And I think that's so important because that is a massive issue. Nowadays, children are under so much pressure to, be the best at everything, to be the prettiest, to be the most academic, to be the most sociable, to have the most friends, to even now, the more and more pressures as time goes on. But, to have social media followings, these new things that are coming in.
Well, Carol's right at the cutting edge of that. So what is it, would you say that you're seeing right now that does affect kids? Like what's going on?
Well, they're comparing themselves all the time, how they look, how many followers they've got. It's really unhealthy. And all the group chats that, they continue at school. Sometimes parents get involved as well. So you can have 2 or 3 girls that fall out. The next thing, mum's on the group chat, blocking people. I mean, that's really bad. Really bad. It's sad as well. And I'm left building up the confidence of these young people and telling them that they are good and, I will listen to them.
It's a shame, isn't it, that there isn't something, knowing that those, and us, we're all, as I said right at the start, that we are all a product of our childhood. Mm-hmm. So, effects of, turbulent home life can often lead to you feeling, getting anxious, for example. So I didn't know why I was getting anxious, but I could get anxious because I would hear people arguing or I could hear raised voices.
Oh, so awful.
And so I would get anxious as an adult and I'd then think, well, why am I feeling anxious? And I'd have to work it out. I can hear loud voices. Right, that's got to take me back to when I was at home. Right, this isn't my mum and dad. I don't live at home anymore. That's all over. That's done with. And like I say, I think that nobody realizes or even appreciates or embraces the magnitude of what happens to you as a child will potentially happen to you on an unconscious level when you become grown up, when you become an adult. And trauma, what's traumatic? We can look back on trauma now and think, well, trauma because we're grown-ups, because we're adults, means something horrendous. But trauma is sort of age appropriate in that if I'm 5 and I break a toy, or I'm 9 and my friends aren't speaking to me at school and I'm isolated, then that is very, very traumatic because you feel like this is the end of your world. And so, like I said, the impact that childhood trauma has on us as adults is important, which is why things like what you're doing, Carol, is you're kind of helping to stop the problems of the future for all your young people. And like I say, I see it in my own daughter, which is why we're thrilled that you said that you'd come on to be a guest, because like I say, I think you're right at the cutting edge. You're seeing what social media is doing. You're seeing what the power of the mobile phone. If we got bullied at school, we'd go home at the end of the day, it was done. Now it's carrying on. Yeah. It's carrying on Facebook. It's carrying on by WhatsApp. It's carrying on Snapchat, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And then like body image. I mean, I'm guessing you must be seeing that because that's something that is so obvious to us right now as well. Are you seeing a lot of people?
Yes, and also clothing, because they're doing lots of selfies. And they need an endless supply of clothes.
And labels, I guess, as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is hard.
I'm seeing all that. And
which even probably you can relate to that, because I know for you, if you've been on television in an outfit and then a week later, you're on television and you wear same shoes or something, we've had people message and say, you wore those shoes last week.
Yeah.
So... But
I remember the very event. There was one
I know what you're talking
that
about.
blew my mind. So we got asked to go on Big Brother, and it was a challenge that the housemates did. And so it's an episode of Big Brother. The housemates are in the house. They all have to freeze and be statues. And Nick and I go into the Big Brother house, and we had to say one line that was a slightly cryptic, but that might help that person to realise perhaps where they're going wrong. So let's say like there was a boy that was playing a girl and being really like behind her back, sort of mucking around with somebody else. We would give them this like little line of warning, something. Because I remember one that stands out, and her mum had been in, and they get a time with the parent, and her mum had told her, and I just said to this girl, just listen to your mother. And that was all I said to her. Anyway, by the by, I don't know, I'm going off on one there. However, did that and then got on social media this message that went, so are you on Big Brother? Why were you wearing your daughter's shoes?
And they were shoes that even I'd only worn once, but for my prom. Do you remember?
How the hell? Yeah.
And so I'd worn them for my prom, and then you'd worn them because you said, they'd match with what I was going to wear.
Can I borrow them?
Yeah.
I did.
Because we're the same shoe size, which is very helpful.
It is.
But my point being in saying that is, I know you feel that, right, because you get that. But what Carol's saying, which I'd never even considered, is children now are experiencing the same, because of social media, it's making it, whereas before it was just like, you couldn't be on TV wearing the same things. We always hear that, people say that. But now it's like, it's real life for children that have got social media, and their friends are going, well, you've already worn that. You wore that last time.
So Carol, knowing that you're seeing this with your drama students, how do you counteract that? I mean, how do you say to them, look, don't become part of this thing that's getting out of control? How do you rein it in and say, look,
and can you?
Let's have the reality check? I don't
Very
know.
hard.
Can you do that without criticism?
I don't think that, I can stop this at all. No, I think
I think it's a big thing.
Just highlight, I think, just don't fall into the trap.
Yeah.
There was one girl, sorry.
No, go.
There was a girl that has just recently got a job. And this job was a television job. It was a news programme. And they were doing a social experiment. So they approached us and asked for a 16-year-old girl who was close to a granddad. And I had a girl there who was close to a great relationship. They do TikToks together and they go on holiday. Fabulous. Granddad runs her everywhere. And the experiment was they were to swap phones for a week. And hers was going off constantly, with all the Instagram and the Snapchat, and his was an old-fashioned phone. I asked her how it was. She said she didn't realise, she felt like she had a massive weight lifted off her shoulders.
Really?
She said it was great. She said, at first I thought, oh no, I'm going to keep in touch with my friends. That's what I do every night. I'm on my phone. And, texting, I'm going to keep in touch. She said, but after a couple of days, she said it was so liberating. It was brilliant.
That is so interesting. And I read an article last week about phone sales in America, and your standard phone with no emails, no internet, no social media, the sales have increased by 2,800%.
Really?
It's people realising, look, I just don't want to be beholden to things anymore and having to go back to emails and be that contactable.
I mean, I remember when we went away. Do you remember we went to the retreat that we went on? We went on like a
juicing retreat.
Yeah, juicing, like it was like meditation and yoga and all those things.
Mention him, Jason Bailey.
Yes.
I mean, Juicy Oasis, one of the nicest places I've ever been to.
Just putting it out there, I would like to go again soon, please, Nick. If you take me.
But when we went there, I remember doing the same thing, because there's an option, isn't there, that you can hand your phone in, not do that, or you can obviously have your phone there, fine.
But they do have a very strict policy that it's got to be on silent in public areas, which I thought was
which is good. But I said to you, if I'm going to go, I want to do it properly. And if I can't be on it in certain places anyway, I want to try and do it like completely. And I remember it was a week we were there, and I remember turning my phone off, and I didn't turn it on for a week. And I remember the first maybe day or two was really hard, because it was like, oh, what do I do with it? You kind of go to it and it's not there. But then after that, I felt the same thing. It was like this big relief of, well, I can't reply to anyone, so I don't need to worry about what anyone's saying or doing or work or, all these things to get back to. And it is such a relief. And then I think only then do you realize how much we are using it and how much pressure it is. And pressure is the right word, because I think there's this bit of a confusion there, because science speaking, I've not yet done my science corner today, but I will put in there from a science perspective that all these sort of like getting likes on social media, follows, etc., is a dopamine release. Every time that happens, we get a release of dopamine, our feel-good hormone in the brain, and it's like getting a reward. It's the same as being rewarded every time. So we're feeling that reward, so it's making us feel good in the moment. But what we're not seeing is in the long term, it's actually having a detrimental effect on our mental health, because then when we're not having those things, it feels like really we're withdrawing from it. It's like there's no validation. And I think that our validation has switched from just being in person and expecting, like compliments, things at school, etc. And the validation is now going into the virtual realm. And it's like we need that sort of validation from virtual people that really it means nothing, but it's becoming more important.
I've got to be honest, when we were contestants on Celebrity Hunter.
I thought you went all American then. Celebrity
Hunter.
I
nearly did actually, yeah. And we were without a phone for 2 weeks. And I thought it was amazing.
Yeah,
we had different pressures because we were being hunted down, weren't we?
But hunted like animals.
Yeah.
Other than that,
it was really, really liberating.
I had the pressure of having to wee outside a lot.
Yeah. But anyway, let's change the subject from that very quick. I've got a question, Carol. Let me ask you, do you know how many actors it takes to change a light bulb?
I don't, Nick.
Well,
no.
there's 10. There's one change in the light bulb and the other 9 going, it should have been me.
That's about right.
But knowing, and obviously we're sort of talking about the challenges of childhood in this, both if you're a child now and the impacts of adulthood, and obviously we'll sort of give some tips shortly. However, knowing that I think that being a kid is really difficult. I don't think it's an easy task, and I think the challenges of childhood include things, like issues at home with parents, bullying at school, for example, trying to keep up with the latest trends, trying to get those social media likes and acceptances. Trying to be popular, I think, is something that's really hard. But now we've also got, like we said, the pressures of the things that come along with social media. And I know that we're talking about drama here, because obviously, Carol, that's your field. But extracurricular activities, regardless of what they are, I actually think in a world, and as an adult, being able to say, it was those extracurricular activities. I was in the school choir. I did belong to Guides for a short period. That one wasn't really for me, but I did go, and it was very nice. But I, that wasn't the thing that I was really passionate about. But the school choir and the drama, those were those things that gave me pockets of being able to be a kid, pockets of time where I didn't have to hear any arguing, pockets of time where I felt like I belonged, I mattered.
Like, some escapism really. And I know one of my good friends, his son goes to martial arts classes, and I'm talking to him, he's like, he goes twice a week, but he will go 5 times a week if he could.
Yeah.
So again, having something else that you choose to do.
So with that in mind, and I know we're talking about drama in this, so it's any extracurricular activity, but you must see the impact that has both on your children now, because I'm sure that you'll probably know that some kids aren't from the most peaceful of homes.
No.
And you must see that they do become children. And then even probably in adulthood, have you met people that you maybe didn't realise you impacted, and then you've met them later on in life?
Yes, I have.
Give us an example.
There was somebody who came to me several years ago, and she was 16 at the time. And we had held a competition within the workshop where they had to write a letter to somebody who's been a big impact on their lives.
I love that.
Yeah, and they won some free drama sessions, and there was some really moving stories, and it was open to everybody, all the young ones from 8 right up to 18. And the girl that won, she'd written a letter about her sister who'd passed away and how she missed her and how amazing this sister was and how her life was empty without her. And she was at the workshop probably for about 2 years. So she won, this girl won the free drama lessons. And we fast forward years and years, 10, 15 years later. And it was one dark evening, 5 o'clock on a winter's evening.
Can't you tell she's into drama? She's setting the
scene.
She's been a director, right?
It was a bit drizzly, the weather. I was going to M&S for my tea after finishing work. And I hear this girl, this female voice go, Carol. Looked around. Carol. And there wasn't anybody apart from this girl in a red coat with a hood up. Like Little Red Riding Hood with a hood up. And I looked straight at her. She said, I'm sorry, I just had to stop you. You probably don't remember me. And I looked her straight in the eyes and I went, I do. And I said, and I said her name. She went, I can't believe it. You've remembered me. So I said, yeah, I'm getting a bit teary now. And I said, yeah. And she said...
Sorry, are we getting teary then or now? I don't know.
No,
right, okay, well, that's good.
No, I didn't get teary at the time. And she said, I was really lost when I came to your drama workshop. She said, sorry. Us drama people are in touch with our feelings.
That's a great thing.
That's a beautiful thing.
Said,
never be embarrassed about being in touch with your feelings.
She said, I'm now, she said, I didn't know what to do, what university to go to. In fact, it took some time. I went travelling. She went travelling for a couple of years before she did go to university. Anyway, she eventually ended up at university, and she just said, I'd like to let you know that I'm head of drama. A local high school in Lancashire.
Wow.
And it was like, I was really touched.
Well,
sorry about that.
No, that's
Carol,
beautiful.
you know absolutely that wouldn't have happened had it not been for you.
There's nothing better, is there? I mean, and listen, I'm feeling emotional because we see that too. We're so lucky, the three of us, that we get to help people. I mean, you're helping create the happy childhood, and then we're helping to fix what happened in that weren't.
Yeah.
And just from my personal experience, I know just how vital and wonderful those pockets of escapism time are. And you'll probably, like I said to you at the start here, you'll probably never really appreciate the difference that you make in life, the friendships that you help form, the confidences that you help give, those people that maybe felt that they were useless and had no value, that you listen to them, that you validate their existence, that the knock-on effect is just colossal. And I think more than ever, our young people today need things like this, like your school, like some form of group or something to help them feel part of something valued, build the confidence, make friendships. And I just think what you offer is genuinely, the fact that something like that exists is wonderful. I think
you're totally right, because, Dad said before about, what can Carol do, or does she do anything to try and fix those pressures and issues? And the truth is, while she can't fix those things, what she can do and what she does and what, extracurricular, these sort of groups, etc., does is it provides people with so many different things that help alongside those pressures. So like you said, an opportunity to make friends, if school's a difficult place, like it was for me, to have somewhere else to go where you can make new friends and realize that it's not you, it's just the people you're around at school, for example. Meeting different people from different walks of life, and even if they don't have the same problem that you do, knowing there's other people out there that are also struggling and you're not alone, and you're all sort of going through those same pressures and feeling those same things. Also, social abilities, I think that our children have been deprived with COVID of social opportunities, you know, for adults, you know, not so much. I mean, even as adults, you know, we hear in clinic all the time, people are saying, well, since COVID, I just feel a bit like I don't want to go out. I find it harder to socialize. But imagine the children.
Well,
I mean, you will see that
so
went through that.
And did you notice anything after COVID?
Yes. Everybody, they couldn't communicate because they'd been in the bedrooms texting friends. I've just remembered one of my groups, because they didn't see me, we had a quiz once a week and we went on Zoom, and that was lovely with a group of the teenagers. Will you be in it, Carol? And that was great.
How nice.
Yeah. But I didn't get any of the questions right, but it was good to see them.
But that is true, isn't it? And it's something that I hadn't actually considered, that, you know, during COVID, yes, you know, we were all at home together. But what you're saying, and I'd not thought about it, because we're living in a very different world now. Young people are no longer sort of sitting around the TV because we only have 3 channels. You know, most kids everybody has a different TV, or a lot of children do. Those that don't, a lot of them have a phone or games or some sort of, and they're not necessarily communicating through speech. They're communicating through text.
Which is very different, because even though it's still having friends around, so to speak, it's not developing your social skills.
Absolutely
it's not developing. So it's I mean, did you find that was more so in the younger people, because that's in those years where they're learning to socialize and do those things? They've had 2 years of not learning how to do those things.
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yes, I did see that. And I found that with the teenagers, they thought they were being antisocial by not texting their friends. That's what they called antisocial.
Wow. That's interesting,
Which
isn't it? Different.
Yeah.
Very different to our time. And
I must ask, because obviously you started this off by introducing Carol and saying that she is being at the back of many famous faces.
Are we allowed to ask, or would you
Yes.
Yeah, so
go on, name drop a bit, Carol. Tell us which household names that we see on TV, or some of them, or a handful of them, that is thanks to you, your school.
Okay. Leighton Williams started his career with us. He came to us before he got the break in the West End as Billy Elliot.
Oh, amazing.
Ralph Little came to us for several years, and we got him
He was in
Royal Family.
I didn't know that
I
he was
love
with
that
you.
show too.
A brilliant show. Love the Royal Family.
Somebody who's flying really high at the moment and doing a lot of American stuff, and is in Emily in Paris. Lucien Laviscount came to us sometime. We've probably had about 30 famous faces from Coronation Street. So everybody, Fizz, Chesney, Nikki Sanderson, who played Candice, and she's in Hollyoaks now. There's so many.
I bet.
And how does that make you feel when you see them on the screen?
Very, very proud. Really proud. But you know what I'm going to say, don't you? I'm proud of them all.
Yeah.
So even if they're not on the screen, I'm equally as proud, because people have gone on to have great careers. So many have gone on to be drama teachers.
Really?
And I go in the schools. I go, oh, Carol, can you come in?
But even not the careers, there must be so many successes beyond career successes, right? Like so many successes.
Even personal relationships.
Personal successes. People, I mean, even I know people that when I was at your drama school that were very, very, not shy, but were a lot quieter, that now are so much more confident. So even that is a massive success.
That was a question I was going to ask before we start wrapping up, and getting our tips for our handbook to happiness. But that was something I was going to ask. Have you seen a child come in that was perhaps, you know, really nervous, really shy, really introverted, and then do you physically see that development?
See them change before your eyes. You see them change, nervous. They can't read in front of anybody. They hardly speak. And you can see them just stood back, weighing everything up, just wanting so much to do it. And then each week, baby footsteps.
Because you don't push them, do you? It's just whatever they want to do.
A lot of them, they'll do their volunteering. Duke of Edinburgh, volunteering with us, you know, when they're teenagers. And you just see it.
Yeah, like
just
little,
there.
little flower, aren't they?
Yeah.
That you just the parents plant, and then you help to cultivate to help them bloom, like our little girl.
That's so great, and what a difference. And when you consider the glossophobia, or the fear of public speaking, it is considered the biggest fear on the planet.
But do you not think as well, a lot of that comes from school and people being laughed at?
Yes.
And I think children spend all their lives at either school or home, and having another place to go away from just school or home, because school can be difficult and you can get laughed at and you can feel bullied and isolated and all those things. And even, research shows that even having somewhere to go beyond home is really helpful, because it allows children to develop independent thought and independent abilities and decision making, and feel, that they are able to do things for themselves away from their parents. But to have a place that isn't school, where there is a lot of judgment and those feelings of kind of being ostracized or isolated, I think having another place to go has so many benefits, if that is possible for children to have those, confidence building, realizing their value beyond academia in another field, something that they're good at and they enjoy, that they can pursue, and meeting new people, conversation, communication, all those things that are developing. But I just think it's, and confidence, like Carol's saying, sort of the confidence growth and growing as a person and shaping themselves and figuring themselves out, I think is so important.
So on that note, I sorry to put you under pressure here, Carol, but this is our podcast is called the Handbook to Happiness, and each episode is another page that we add to that Handbook to Happiness. So with the knowledge of today's episode has been about challenges in childhood for children and adults. What would you like to add? What tips, what help, what advice would you like to add to today's page of our Handbook to Happiness, do you think?
I think children should always be listened to. It doesn't mean because they're little that their problems are any less than an adult.
I applaud that enormously. And Liv?
I think that's such a good point. I really, really do, because I think that listening is the first step to making children feel validated and understanding how we can help. But yeah, I think the other thing that I would add into that also is that if children, or if your child is struggling with themselves, or if they feel isolated, or they feel that they're not good enough, whether that be because academically they're compared and they're not as good academically as others, or whether that be from bullying and comparison, things like social media, I think just emphasizing that child's strengths rather than looking at, comparing them to somebody else, emphasizing what's their strength, what are they great at? Are they great at drama? Are they great at swimming? Are they great at whatever it is that they do? Or even if they don't do any hobbies, are they just a really nice person? Reminding them of all the amazing individual things about them, because I think children naturally, and as adults, we naturally compare ourselves to others. And I think if we emphasize children's value, aside from comparison, they can start to realize how amazing they are, rather than using comparison to make themselves feel that they don't have value.
Perfect. Nick?
Yeah, just picking up on comparison, really, that, we do naturally compare, but we can change that, and we can, really all we should ever compare to is ourselves and our journey, and where were we a year ago, where were we 3 years ago. And quite often we forget to do that, and we don't realize how amazing and how successful we all are. And and often this comparison is, it's like, I don't know, like running a marathon, for example. You're comparing your mile 1 to someone's mile 15, and you're nowhere near, and they'll always be ahead because they set off before you did. So if you're comparing, you should only ever compare with yourself. And my page for the Handbook for Happiness is knowing that people influence us throughout our lives, and knowing that there was someone out there, to everyone listening, who really played a part in the person that you are today. And get in touch with them, tell them, because it's the most amazing thing. And as Carol said, with the lady that said to her, what a great gift to give back to someone who transform your life.
I love that. So my final tips in the Handbook to Happiness, firstly, from a child's perspective, I would like to urge parents, I think Carol and Liv and Nick have given some great points there, but I do think that we should encourage our children to get off the phones, but then fill that void, because we don't want them to see that they're being punished in any way. They need to understand that putting the phone down actually enables them to live their life and see the world and do things. So no matter what that is, finding some extracurricular activities, whether that would be within school that's free, whether that's some voluntary work, or whether it is playing an instrument or learning a language or whatever, but having something, a hobby, something beyond their phone, something beyond the things that are going wrong at school or going on in life, I think are absolutely vital. The next thing, again, then moving, and I've said about social media there, that, like I said, we've got to be so careful that our children don't feel punished by the fact that we're trying to encourage them to come off their phones. It does need to be seen as a positive action. But then for the adults, and for you listening now, maybe that has struggled with childhood trauma that impacts you today, that has maybe given you low self-esteem, that has knocked your confidence, that has made you feel that you're, you have no value, that has had an impact on maybe how you eat or self-medicate yourself with alcohol or food or whatever that might be, or whether it is just that you have panic attacks and anxiety that feel like they're coming from nowhere, but probably you are actually being triggered. Whatever that is, whatever your trauma, my advice to you would be, write yourself a timeline. Look at what those events are. If you need to, take that timeline to a therapist and let them help you work your way through them. Or if you've got somebody that is a good friend that you can do this, or maybe, if you can do this yourself and want to look on our YouTube channel where we've got lots of things to help, what we need you to do is look at those traumas and reframe them. Reframe them from the better. Maybe it's something that you learned. Maybe from that, it gave you some new knowledge to be able to help somebody else. Maybe it wasn't personal to you. I think you've got to realize that when bad things happen to you, whether that's from the school bully or maybe even a family member, it's not because it was you, it was because that's who they were and your worlds collided. And changing that perspective, realizing it wasn't personal to me, can offer some release. And my final words are, and I can't take credit for these because these are my husband's, but when you reframe your childhood, when you reframe those negative, traumatic childhood events and start to concentrate on those pockets of happiness, it's never too late to have had a happy childhood. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks so much for joining us. Wherever you're listening to this podcast today, do be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and we'd be incredibly grateful of a 5-star review.
Oh, and don't forget to recommend our podcast to your family and friends. And if you'd like to have a look at some more free resources, take a look at our website, nickandeva.com. If you want to drop us a question, we'd love to hear from you. Send it to admin@speakman.tv. And you can follow us. We're at The Speakmans on all social media platforms. On YouTube, we're Handbook to Happiness Pod. If you are struggling, do be sure to speak to your general practitioner. And all that's left to say is that we appreciate you spending time with us today.